Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 663 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our ninth book just came out. It's called From Letters to Leaders, The Legacy of Service. So go and pick up that book on Amazon today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, my guilty pleasure is watching reality television shows like Love is Blind on Netflix. My wife and I are totally fascinated with the show, and our favorite part is seeing how different dating scenes or relationships can be in various countries, and also understanding each country's unique cultures, which are very different depending on which country we're talking about. Our next guest has some great insight into reality television that I thought would be really fun for our college student listeners today. As a clinical psychologist, a best-selling author, and founder and executive chair of Multi-Health Systems, Dr. Stein spent over 4 decades advancing the science and application of emotional intelligence and psychological assessment. At MHS, they've built a global reputation for delivering scientifically validated tools used by governments, militaries, Fortune 500 companies, and even elite sports teams. Their work has earned recognition as a 3-time Profit 100 winner, one of Canada's best managed companies, one of the 10 most admired corporate cultures, and an E&Y Entrepreneur of the Year in healthcare. Dr. Stein also brought psychological expertise and candidate selection assessments to reality TV. So he's consulted on shows that include Beast Games, Big Brother Canada, Yes Chef, The Amazing Race Canada, MasterChef Canada, and many, many more. Whether Dr. Stein is speaking on stage, consulting with leaders, teaching at the Directors College, or even conducting psychological evaluations for reality TV, his mission is to help people and organizations thrive through emotional intelligence, resilience, and also evidence-based insight. Welcome to the show, Dr. Stein.
Great to be with you, Michael.
Hey, it is fantastic to have you on the show today. Like I mentioned, I'm a big fan of reality TV, so I'm just fascinated with everything that happens behind the scenes. And you've got a unique chair, a unique vantage point that I think is just fascinating because you've worked as a psychologist on dozens of reality TV shows, and even Beast Games with Mr. Beast, who I know is a very popular figure for my own kids who are in college. So, what exactly does a psychologist do behind the scenes of a reality TV show?
So the role encompasses various points in time for the show. So first of all, I'm involved in cast screening, assessment and screening. So we do some psychological testing. I do interviewing of all the potential cast members, not all of them, but well, all the ones who end up on the show. You may get like 2 or 3 thousand who apply to be on a particular show, but when it gets down to about 60 or so, then I get involved in helping weed that down to the 20 or 30 that get selected. Of course, Mr. Beast was an exception. We had 1,000 people who started out on that show. So that's the first part of the role. The second part often involves preparing them for production. So the day or two before we actually start the film, I'll sit with each one of them, make sure they know what they're getting into. They still want to do this, and just check out that things are good with them. Then I'm also available during production. Sometimes I'm actually on the set throughout the whole time in case something goes wrong or somebody's having some specific issues or difficulties. I'm there to sort of step in and help them get through or navigate those situations. Then I do debriefs, especially when you're evicted from a show. Maybe it's like Big Brother or one of the other shows where people get voted out of the show. So I help them at the time of the debrief where we will, sort of talk about what's to come. Sometimes they have no idea about what's going on in the real world since they've been locked up in this coop house of a place. And then I'm available often for follow-up when that's required. Sometimes people have some difficulty adjusting to the situation, so I can be there to help them or to refer them to a colleague of mine in the same city that they live in for any kind of follow-up help or treatment that they may need.
Mm. Actually, that makes me really happy to know that there's a real psychologist that's working with some of the people who are on air because we certainly see all kinds of explosions, on television. And
Hmm.
so making sure that they have that connection to a psychologist to work through some of the issues that they might be having, to me, I think that's wonderful, both before, during, and after the filming. I think that's really great. Beast Games has really exploded. I mean, they've had over 50 million viewers in the first 25 days. A huge percentage of viewers are in that 18 to 24 age range bracket. Why do you think this reality TV has become so big and resonates so strongly with this demographic of college students?
Well, part of it is that it's kind of a match. You see people like you, young people, on these shows. The other thing is they're doing things that maybe you wish you could do or want to do. Shows like, I don't know, Canada Shore, which is like Jersey Shore. They're being wild, they're drinking, they're partying, they're doing all those kinds of things. Mr. Beast, he's always a challenge to watch. He is #1 in the world on YouTube. So he's been able to build a huge audience of followers who like to watch him go through all his challenges and the things that he does. So I think young people are attracted by the fun of it, the fact that people are kind of having a good time. It's a little wild. There's relationships. They come together. They come apart. There's alliances. All the kind of drama that you might see to some degree in your own lives.
They see themselves in those characters. It's so
Mhm.
fascinating to me. And in your research, you identified several different archetypes that show up in reality TV, but also to your point, it shows up in real life as well. So, what inspired you to start studying these different personality patterns?
Well, as you mentioned, I've been involved in dozens and dozens of shows. I've interviewed hundreds, maybe even thousands of people who want to be on these shows. And the shows are somewhat different, right? There's dating shows I've worked on. There's scare shows like Scare Tactics. There's social experiment shows like Big Brother, adventure shows like The Amazing Race. Across all of these different shows, I noticed that a lot of the characteristics of the individuals crossover, and cooking shows is another one, and renovation shows. You see a lot of these same types of individuals across the different shows, whether it's cooking or adventure, and that's what I learned makes them really interesting. That's what makes you want to watch them. For example, in many of these shows we have the villain, right? And we all love to watch the villain, whether we hate the villain or we identify with the villain. That seems to be pretty common across a lot of these shows. Then we sort of have what I call the chaos agent, somebody who sort of walks in the room and causes everybody to go crazy. They say something dumb or they do something, and we know people like that, right? Whether it's at school or wherever we are, somebody always disrupts and or asks dumb questions to the professor in class and throws the whole class into a tizzy. We see those people in real life. We have the comic, and we're pretty familiar with that person who goes through life making jokes and being funny all the time. We have the hot mess, the person who can't regulate their emotions. They're always emoting out there. They're crying or they're laughing or they're doing something without paying much attention. So I've identified about 12 of these, what I call archetypes, these patterns of behavior that cut across most of these shows. And I understand, or I learned that that's what really makes it interesting. I mean, you don't get to taste the food on a cooking show, so you have no idea how good it really is. But you do watch those characters, and the characters have a story, and they carry out these roles, these archetypes that make you want to watch and see what's going to happen. Who's going to align with who? Who's going to get in a fight with who? Who's going to, throw the spaghetti sauce in the air and we'll run out of the room? That's what makes these shows interesting. And I think these archetypes, once we identify them, and we can see them. It's really a mirror of real life. It's a mirror of what we actually see in our own lives, but it's exaggerated to a large degree.
hmm You're absolutely right. I mean, I see these archetypes across every reality TV show out there. So it's really fascinating that, we've actually given names to the 12 of them. And then I'm assuming we're looking for those when we cast new shows. Another one of the archetypes is the over competitor, which, I see in real life all the time. Gen Z is ultra competitive. I see this all the time on college campuses. Many of the fraternity and sorority members listening now are very ambitious and they are very competitive. So when does healthy competition actually move into the category of being unhealthy?
Well, that's a good point. And with every one of these archetypes, I would say there's a healthy side and a dark side, right? So there's a certain amount that we want, but then
Mhm.
it becomes a problem. So in terms of competitiveness, what we see, I mean, it's great to be competitive in terms of wanting a good mark in class and studying hard, but when it becomes a problem is when it sort of takes away from everything else. Our whole life is invested in our grades, for example, how well we do in school, or how well we do in a certain sport, and we have nothing else going on in our life. It becomes all consuming. That's not healthy. The other part of it we find that can be a problem is that when it gets in the way of our relationships, we don't pay attention to people. We can't form close relationships because we're too busy competing with the exercise that we're doing. So paying attention to others is really important, and that ability to actually care about other people, we lose that when we become overly competitive.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm sure that our listeners can see that in their own fraternity and sorority chapters. They can see that behavior, the healthy side, the unhealthy side. I saw over the last week in the reality TV show Survivor that the first winner, who I would consider to be maybe a strategist or a mastermind, he actually still hasn't paid taxes on the $1 million that he's won. Going back to the first Survivor.
Right.
And now he owes three times the amount that he actually won on Survivor. So
Wow.
it's just wild to me when I see that. And you actually described the strategist, the mastermind. These are people who are building alliances. They're thinking several steps ahead. It's almost like chess to them, that they're thinking three or four moves ahead. What leadership strengths does that archetype bring to a team?
Well, I think it's important because we want people who can kind of see their way forward, see where we're going. It's hard to be a leader if you don't know where you're going to, right? And if you're just emoting all the time, it's not seen as a good leadership skill. So being able to say, hey, here's our goal, here's where we want to go, here's what we want to achieve. We want to finish college in 4 years. We want to look for a certain type of job. Planning that out to a certain degree or mapping that out is really a road to success. And even on these reality shows, some people come in and they're very strategic. They know basically what they want, and they know how to work with other people and to move them like chess players, move the people to the position they want in order for them to move further and further in the game. And real life is a lot like that as well.
hmm All right, so let's assume for a moment that a student understands all of these different personality archetypes, like the strategist, the over-competitor, all of these. How can it help them to navigate some of their friendships, leadership roles, conflicts on campus within, let's say, their own student organization?
I think it helps them in a number of ways. One way is to be able to identify it, because often we get wrapped up when somebody comes and is emoting or whatever. You just react, right? You just say, shut up, I can't take this, you're driving me crazy. So if you learn to identify what the type is, then you first of all learn to step back and say, oh, now I see what's going on here. And then you can address it in a more effective way. And in the book I'm putting together on this topic, we're really giving strategies. How do you deal with the person who's just strategizing all the time and pays no attention to you? What do you do to get their attention, for example? Or the person who's the hot mess, who's emoting all the time and you can't get them to sort of focus and pay attention? What are the strategies to work with those people? Obviously, the best strategy is not to just emote back and react and scream at each other, because it's not very effective. It doesn't work very well. So, number one, being able to identify them. Number two, being able to manage them or how to deal with them effectively. And there's a set of skills you can use. And also, number three is to recognize them in yourself. Sometimes we don't even realize that we display these kinds of patterns of behavior. So we can catch ourselves when we see ourselves getting into a crazy argument or doing something. We can sort of step back and say, "Oh my goodness, is that me? Am I that chaos manager? Am I just causing trouble around here for no reason?" And then step back and say, "Okay, how do I calm this down or change the situation?"
Mhm.
So there's a lot we can do, and the people who manage these well in reality shows tend to be the ones that go on and win, the ones who are really good at it. And I think that lesson is in life as well. Those of us who can manage these patterns of behavior within ourselves and around us are the ones who are going to do better in class, are going to make it through school, and make it in life in terms of getting the job you really want, working with the people that you really enjoy working with, or managing those people you have to work with that you can't stand. So, all of these are lessons that we can see through the lens of these various archetypes.
Yeah. Well, you make some really great points. I guess if you want to win a reality TV show or maybe be a leader in your student organization, start to study these personality archetypes, and then you'll have a leg up, I think, in the group. And you've also spent decades researching emotional intelligence. So I guess, the question is, a lot of these college students, they'll come to me and they'll say, Mike, I want to be president of our chapter. And what do I need to do in order to make that happen? So, how does emotional intelligence influence whether somebody becomes a respected leader in a group?
Yeah, so emotional intelligence is a real key factor in leadership, and there's several ways in which it can help you. First of all, and what I'd start with is emotional self-awareness, really being aware of your own emotions. What are your trigger points? What are the things that set you off? How do you sort of manage yourself so that you don't go crazy over something that's minor, that you can, manage various situations around you? The second real important thing is what we call empathy, that ability to listen and understand where others are coming from. Now, that doesn't mean you agree with them, but you understand where they're coming from. So if you want to be president of your chapter, you've got to know what's going on with the people around you. What do they want? What's important to them? You can't tell them what a great person you are when they don't care about that. All they want is cheaper food at the dorm or something. So you got to find out what motivates them, and to do that, you need to build your empathy, your listening skills, your ability to pick up on what's important to them. And the third really important thing is what we call assertiveness. So there's a range of behavior from being passive, being a wallflower, to being aggressive, to being overly nasty to people. In the middle is assertiveness, the ability to ask for what you want in a pleasant way, or to speak to someone who you disagree with, but still be friends in the end. That's a skill many of us have lost over the last several years. We become so polarized. But the ability to be assertive, to be able to get your point across, and that'll help you win people over and want to follow you, want to make you the president of the fraternity if that's what your goal is.
Well, that's really helpful. I definitely appreciate that. Let's assume for a moment that a college student agrees with you that emotional intelligence is going to be important in order for them to become the next president of their chapter. So, if they want to improve their emotional intelligence, what are three things that they should start practicing today?
Okay, so again, going back to what I mentioned, self-awareness. How can you be more emotionally self-aware? How can you pay more attention to what's really going on inside you, what you're feeling? And there's a number of ways you can do that. I mean, one is through meditation,
Mhm.
through all kinds of sort of areas where, like mindfulness, where you're paying attention to what's going on inside you. Now, it takes practice. It's not going to happen in one step. But if you read about and learn more about that skill, you'll become more self aware of what's going on inside your own skin. The second one, of course, is empathy. How do you learn about what's going on with other people? So, a good way to do that is by asking questions. I can assume that you're listening to me and you like what I'm saying, but I can be more certain if I say, hey, Mike, is this resonating with you? Are we on target? Is this what you want to hear? So, if I learn to ask simple little questions to make sure I'm on track, I know what you want to hear. That's empathy. And then assertiveness, the ability to really express what I think. So I can say, hey, Mike, I was thinking that maybe we should go for lunch together or have a beer or whatever.
Mhm.
Is this something you would like to do? So really being able to do the ask for the thing that I want to happen. So practicing those three skills, I think, will get you much farther ahead. Now, there's a set of other skills too that I've written about, but I won't go into all of them right now. There's 15 specific skills, but if you can master those three, you'll be well on your way to being more successful.
That is extremely helpful. I certainly appreciate that. I was actually watching Love is Blind Sweden. It's one of the most recent ones that they've put out. And literally there's a character on the show who recognizes that he needs to be more emotional with his relationship. So he basically says to the camera, I used artificial intelligence and I typed in, how can I become more emotional? And apparently AI told him like good luck with that or something.
Oh, really? Well, AI is not going to be your most emotional kind of confrere to go to, but interesting.
I mean, you couldn't have scripted it any better. I mean, I was laughing for days about that. I thought
I'm
that was
sure.
really fascinating. That he's going
Yes.
to a computer to learn how to be more emotional. It's great.
Yeah, it's not going to work. And again, emotional intelligence is really something that that is separate from what we see in AI. And I
Yeah.
think it's going to be your advantage as AI becomes uh, inundated all around us. You're going to find that those people who build their emotional intelligence are the ones who stand out because they go above and beyond what AI can offer. That ability to listen to people, to assert yourself, and those things are more human. And AI, I don't think is ever going to capture those aspects of humanity.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for AI to capture that accurately. Now, you've worked with organizations ranging from the FBI to Fortune 500 companies. I think the college students who are listening right now, they are really interested in their careers and jobs and making money. They're very focused on this, probably because of the recession in 2008 that happened when they were kids, and they still remember that when their parents lost their jobs or maybe their parents' friends lost their jobs. And so they're very in tune to careers and making sure that they have a stable income once they graduate so they can pay back all their bills and things like that. So, in terms of the skills that they're going to need when they enter the workforce, they graduate and they go into some company, are there particular skills that you believe are going to matter the most for these students who are entering the workforce now?
I think there are a number of skills, but one of them that sort of stands out to me right now is flexibility, that ability to adapt to change. Now, even, and it's much more today than in my day, but I started out as a, traditional clinical psychologist, doing what you'd imagine psychologists to do, sitting in a chair across from somebody, dealing with their problems. And my career has transitioned so far around from those days, which was, never anything I expected. It's really the ability to be flexible and switch. Working in reality TV was something I never would have imagined as a graduate student or even as a young psychologist. For most part, it wasn't even around in those days. But we have careers today that didn't exist 10 years ago. So flexible means being able to adapt, to learn, to do new things, but also to keep your passion, to find things that you care about. For me, psychology is a broad, broad brush. So there's a lot within psychology that gives me room to play. And if you have a career, whether it's in technology, whether it's in business or in marketing, where there's a broad brush of activities, of things you can do, keep an open mind into how you can bounce around within that particular discipline and look for things that maybe are a bit different, that stand out. For me, it's been always the edge of psychology, things that my colleagues wouldn't do or would say, "What are you crazy? What how can you do that?" But it ended up working. Not everything is going to work, but enough things that you can find can hit on. And whether if you're in marketing and you find some obscure area of marketing and you could be the best at it, well, that's going to be great. You're going to be in demand. People are going to want you, and that exists in almost any discipline we look at. You can find somewhere around the edge where everybody else in your class isn't looking. You look under that rock and you find something that you're passionate about. Oh, I really like this. This is cool. I want to learn more about this. And you build that skill into a specialty, and you could be very successful.
Yeah, Dr. Stein is absolutely right on that. When you think about even, doctors, I mean, your primary care physician, they're kind of a dime a dozen. They're on every street corner, right? But the brain surgeon, he's going to be sought out because of his expertise. And guess what? People are going to pay him a premium for that very specific niche expertise. So what Dr. Stein is talking about is incredibly important. And if you need to rewind and go back and listen to it again, listen to it again because that really is the crux of it. Now, looking back at your career, you've obviously made strides since those first days of just, being a psychologist across from somebody who's talking about what's going on in their lives, and now you're in reality TV. So, looking back at your career, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
I guess I would tell my 20-year-old self to be flexible, to not be fixed, not be stuck in a box. A lot of my classmates felt, this is it. I'm going to work in a hospital. That's the rest of my life. I'm going to be there. In fact, I started off working in a children's hospital and then I went kind of into the business world when we started our company, MHS. And again, that was seen as pretty blasphemous. That was pretty bizarre for a psychologist to do because psychologists are notoriously not very good at business. But I was able to be very successful at that. But the point is, it was seen as a very odd or unusual thing to do. And my colleagues, would say, "Oh, you got to stay." And what eventually happened was the hospital closed and they lost their jobs. So you never know what's going to happen, what's beyond the fringe of where you are. So my advice to myself then would be to stay flexible, be open to change, and always learn. Self-actualization is the other thing we talk about. Always learn and read. I would read psych journals. I would look at what's new, what's happening, what are the new treatments, and what are the new directions. And I gradually moved from dealing with a lot of unhealthy people with depression and anxiety and OCD and ADHD. That was my world. But then I started looking at, what goes right with people? What makes people succeed in life? And I transitioned my career, and that's how I got into emotional intelligence. That seemed to be a factor that really predicted the opposite side of the coin. And I got more and more interested in success and people doing well in spite of difficult life situations, in spite of growing up in a terrible, chaotic home life. There are people who succeeded in life and did really well. So, that flexibility allowed me to transition into an entirely new area. And again, there were very few psychologists at the time who were now we talk about positive psychologists, but positive psychology didn't exist when I started looking in those areas. And then Martin Seligman created that area and it became a huge, huge thing. So be open, be willing to explore, keep learning, and be flexible.
Yeah, great advice. Really good stuff. I completely 100% agree with you, especially now in the age of AI. Things are going to change very rapidly. So it's really important that you be flexible and figure out how do you use your skills to move forward in this new economy that's going to be created as a result of AI. So great stuff. If our listeners, if they want to go and buy all of your books, because I'm sure they are fascinated and they need to start reading all of your stuff if they want to be successful, or maybe they want to invite you to speak on their college campus, where should they go to connect with you and get all of the stuff?
Well, they can come to my website, which is stevenstein.com, www.stevenstein.com. And my books are available at Amazon. The EQ Edge is about emotional intelligence, and Hardiness is all about resilience and learning from difficult times. So, and Emotional Intelligence for Dummies is the other one if you want to start simple and work your way up through that. So I'm readily available through that.
Fantastic. Go to stevenstein.com, pick up all of the books. I'm telling you, it is absolutely worth your time if you want to be successful in life. Read this stuff, understand it, and you will be successful as well. Thank you so much for all of your help here, Stephen. We appreciate you sharing all of this insight. This has been fantastic. Thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. Great meeting you, Michael. Take
Of
care.
course, of course. And to our listeners, if you learned something today from Dr. Stein, I want you to share this episode with your chapter. So drop a link in a group chat or maybe just share a link on social media. You never know who needs to hear Dr. Stein's message today. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.